So let's talk Andalusia. This video is the conclusion of my trip to the south of Spain, but this video will bring you some more general tips and tricks about traveling in Andalusia and Spain in general, and I'll give you some good tips what to visit there, and basically anything that you might find handy if you ever travel to Andalusia in Spain. So stay tuned, let's go. So now the basics. Andalusia is part of Spain, so the official language is Spanish, of course. They use the type C plug outlet like in the rest of Europe, and drive on the right side of the road. Now let's speak language. Like I said, the official language is Spanish, and you can get by English in the most touristy places, but if you plan on traveling further from the city centers or somewhere to the rural parts of the country, you may need to use some Spanish as well. This brings me to the next point that I have, and that's prices. Because Spain in general is not really expensive when you think about it, at least in comparison with the rest of Western Europe. But the thing is, if you don't speak Spanish, then you will have to stay in these tourist restaurants in the city center, and I can tell you that the prices differ a great deal. So if you want to travel on a budget, I really recommend to learn some Spanish and try some of these places that are further from the center, but really the knowledge of English there is really bad. Andalusia is probably, to me, one of the most touristy places or tourist-oriented places in Spain. Basically the whole city center in most of these cities is basically made for tourists. I don't think that the locals even go there, because why should they? So you have to consider that if you're there and you want to try something that's real local, you should go further from the center. Not to mention that somehow the trip ended up being a lot more expensive than I originally planned and originally thought. Apart from the restaurants, even the entrance fees to the major tourist places are quite high. I don't think I have seen anything that was below 10 euro, which is not generally that much for some main site, but if you have to pay 10 euro just to get to the cathedrals or something like that, I think it gets quite pricey quite quickly. Now, speaking of restaurants, there's one really interesting thing about Andalusia and basically Spain in general, and they have this thing called siesta. The whole afternoon they don't do anything, at least it looks like that. Most of the restaurants are open during the morning, again breakfast, lunch, and they close, and they actually really open like at 8 or 9 in the evening. Really, for the locals, having dinner prior to 8 o'clock, it's very unusual, and you cannot find many restaurants that will actually serve you food before that time. Now let's get to the more funny part. Transportation in Andalusia. So there are 2 points that I have here, and the first one is public transportation and the other one is driving. So stay tuned for driving, it will be really fun. But anyway, public transportation is quite good. If you're about to travel between cities, the transportation is quite good. You can buy most of the tickets in advance online. One of the largest airports are Malaga and Sevilla. So you will probably want some transportation directly from the airport, and you can use this company called ALSA. They have quite many buses between most of the cities and even the airports, so that's quite convenient. Traveling within the cities, city centers are quite compact and can be walked on foot. If you need to travel further from the city center, there is quite affordable and reliable public transportation. There's even a metro in Sevilla, and there is basically like no reason for you to drive, which brings me to my next point: driving in Andalusia. If you see any guide on driving in Andalusia, you will see the first point which says don't drive there, and I can tell you firsthand, it's really I don't know even if I can describe it. Like, imagine the little streets that are pretty much the width of your car that you have to navigate while there are still cars going in front of you and behind you, and sometimes even going against you, and sometimes it's like a mess. So first, getting to the city center by car is annoying. The streets are really narrow and it's really hard to drive there anyway because it's full of people. Second, if you want to park there, then just think how the city center looks like. There is usually no large parking lot for your hotel, and also even if there is, then it will have like 20 levels down below the ground, and you'll just have to drive there. It's really annoying, and unless you are a very experienced driver, it can be a nightmare. And also, when it comes to parking in general, it's so fucking expensive. Like, we spent 25 euro on a hotel room in Sevilla, and then we spent like 45 euro for parking for the whole day. It's like a nightmare. Okay, driving between the cities is quite easier. Most of the highways actually do not require you to pay anything, so that's quite nice. I have a feeling that in Andalusia you basically never drive in a straight line. There are always like these curves and hills, and basically just don't drive there. It's really not worth it. The buses are inexpensive, they're quite reliable, and they will take you basically anywhere. Now let's address all of the tourists among you. If you want to visit many of these famous sites, one good advice that I got actually, and it saved my life, not literally, but you know, is book in advance, because especially for the Alhambra, tickets are usually sold out weeks in advance. We were there off season, and the tickets were sold out like a week prior to our arrival, so really think about that. Okay, so those were some more general tips. Now, if you're really interested in what you can actually visit in Andalusia, then there are numerous places that you can go to. I will point out the most amazing ones, at least the ones that I liked most. Okay, to me, my most favorite place was the Alhambra Palace in Granada, and the whole city of Granada is really beautiful. There are like all these mountains around, the peaks of Sierra Nevada, so that's really my spot number one. Some other important and amazing sites in Andalusia are for sure the whole city of Córdoba, where you can visit the Mezquita, the perfect mosque cathedral of Córdoba, and you can actually climb up to the tower for like €2, really affordable. And believe me, I will not say that much in this video. Then you have the Roman bridge of Córdoba, and the city walls. There's the Royal Alcazar of Córdoba. Most of these things, except for the mosque, are actually closed on Monday, so plan accordingly. When you move then to Sevilla, which is like the capital of Andalusia, there are many sites there. My personal favorite was the Royal Alcazar. Then there's the amazing Sevilla Cathedral, which is like the largest cathedral and Gothic church in the world. And don't forget to visit the Plaza de España, which is actually not like a historic place, but it's like probably the one most photographed and Instagram place in the whole of Sevilla. And other interesting parts of Andalusia are the town of Ronda, where you can visit like this amazing bridge across the gorge. Then probably Alcazaba in the city of Malaga, but Malaga is basically like this resort town which is most famous for people who want to spend their holiday on the beach. So I really hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, please let me know in the comments. If you have any more questions, just ask them below. If you like this video, please give me a like, subscribe to my channel, check out my other social media, and see you on my next trip.